How can a dessert made from just one special type of rice stretch several inches without breaking? And why has this chewy Japanese treat fascinated people for over 1,000 years while becoming one of the fastest-growing desserts in America? From traditional hand-pounded rice cakes to modern factory-made mochi ice cream, this soft, bouncy snack has become a global sensation. But behind its unique texture lies a fascinating combination of agricultural science, centuries-old craftsmanship, and food chemistry. Today, we'll uncover exactly how mochi is made, why it's so unbelievably stretchy, and what makes it unlike any other dessert in the world. Let's dive in. It all starts with a special kind of rice. The journey begins long before mochi reaches the kitchen. Farmers carefully cultivate glutinous rice varieties specifically bred for their sticky characteristics. Countries like Japan, China, Thailand, South Korea, and Taiwan have grown these rice varieties for centuries, although Japan remains especially famous for premium mochi-gomi. After harvesting, the rice is dried, milled, and polished to remove the outer bran layers. The polished grains are then sorted to eliminate broken kernels or impurities. Only high-quality grains are selected because consistency plays a major role in achieving mochi's smooth texture. Soaking the rice. Before cooking, the rice undergoes an important soaking stage. The polished grains are submerged in clean water for anywhere from 6 to 18 hours, depending on the variety, temperature, and production method. During soaking, the grains slowly absorb moisture deep into their core. This step ensures that every grain cooks evenly. If the rice isn't fully hydrated, the finished mochi can develop hard spots or an uneven texture. By the end of soaking, the rice has absorbed enough water to prepare it for steaming. Steaming instead of boiling. One interesting fact surprises many people. Traditional mochi rice isn't boiled. Instead, it's steamed. Large steamers cook the soaked rice for roughly 40 to 60 minutes, allowing the grains to become soft while retaining just the right amount of moisture. Steaming offers several advantages. It prevents excess water from washing away starches, maintains better structure, and creates the ideal consistency for pounding later. The cooked rice emerges glossy, tender, and slightly sticky, but it still resembles individual grains. That changes very quickly. The traditional mochi pounding ceremony. One of the most iconic parts of mochi making is called Mochitsuki. This centuries-old Japanese tradition is especially popular during New Year's celebrations. Freshly steamed rice is placed into a large stone or wooden mortar called an yusu. Using a heavy wooden mallet known as a kine, one person pounds the rice while another rapidly turns and wets the dough between strikes. It looks almost like a carefully choreographed dance. The person rotating the dough must pull their hands away in a split second before the next swing lands. The pounding continues for several minutes until the rice grains disappear completely. Instead of separate grains, the mixture transforms into one smooth, glossy, stretchy mass. It's both physically demanding and remarkably precise. What happens during pounding? Every strike crushes the softened rice grains while forcing their starch molecules to spread and bind together. As the rice is compressed over and over again, its remaining grain structure disappears. The starches become thoroughly mixed into a continuous network that traps moisture throughout the dough. The repeated pounding also removes tiny air pockets and creates an exceptionally smooth texture. The longer and more evenly the rice is worked, the softer and stretchier the finished mochi becomes. Master mochi makers develop years of experience learning exactly when the dough has reached the perfect consistency. Too little pounding leaves lumps. too much can make the dough overly sticky and difficult to handle. Finding that sweet spot is part science and part craftsmanship. Modern factories use machines. While traditional mochi making remains popular for festivals and specialty shops, commercial manufacturers rely on automated equipment. Industrial steamers cook hundreds of pounds of rice at once under carefully controlled temperatures. Instead of wooden mallets, powerful kneading and pounding machines repeatedly compress, fold, and stretch the cooked rice. Computer-controlled systems ensure consistent mixing, temperature, and moisture levels throughout every batch. The goal is exactly the same as traditional mochitsuki. Create a perfectly smooth dough with no visible rice grains while preserving the chewy texture people expect. Modern equipment also reduces contamination risks and allows manufacturers to produce thousands of identical mochi every hour. Even with advanced machinery, however, the underlying science hasn't changed. The remarkable stretchiness still comes from transforming cooked glutinous rice into a uniform, elastic starch network. Why is mochi so incredibly stretchy? Now for the question everyone wants answered. What makes mochi stretch so dramatically without immediately tearing apart? The answer lies in the structure of its starch. Most rice contains two main starch molecules, amylose and amylopectin. Regular rice has a much higher proportion of amylose, which gives cooked rice its fluffy, separate grains. Glutinous rice is different. It contains almost entirely amylopectin and only trace amounts of amylose. When the rice is steamed, the starch granules absorb water and swell in a process known as gelatinization. As the rice is pounded or mechanically kneaded while still hot, these swollen starches break apart and blend into a smooth, continuous matrix. That matrix is what gives mochi its signature chew. It can stretch, deform, and spring back without falling apart immediately. Unlike bread dough, however, the elasticity does not come from gluten. It's created entirely by hydrated starch. Temperature also matters. Mochi is at its softest and stretchiest when it's warm. As it cools, the starch molecules slowly reorganize in a natural process called retrogradation, making the mochi firmer and less elastic over time. Shaping and filling the mochi. Once the dough reaches the perfect consistency, it's ready to be portioned. Because fresh mochi is extremely sticky, workers dust their hands, tools, and work surfaces with potato starch, cornstarch, or roasted rice flour to prevent it from sticking. The dough is divided into evenly sized pieces using knives, cutters, or automated portioning machines. Some pieces remain plain, while others are wrapped around delicious fillings. Each piece is carefully sealed by stretching the dough around the filling and pinching the edges together. Skilled workers can create smooth, nearly invisible seams that give mochi its clean, rounded appearance. How is mochi ice cream made? One of the biggest reasons mochi has become so popular in the United States is mochi ice cream. Making it requires careful temperature control. First, small balls of ice cream are formed and frozen until they're extremely firm, often well below standard freezer temperatures. This helps them hold their shape during wrapping. Meanwhile, thin sheets of mochi dough are prepared and cooled just enough to remain flexible without becoming stiff. Workers or automated machines quickly wrap each frozen ice cream ball with a thin layer of mochi before immediately returning it to the freezer. The process has to move fast. If the ice cream softens too much, wrapping becomes difficult, and the finished product may lose its shape. The result is a dessert that combines a chewy outer layer with a creamy frozen center, creating two completely different textures in every bite. Why doesn't fresh mochi stay soft forever? Freshly made mochi is wonderfully soft, but it doesn't stay that way indefinitely. As it sits, the starch molecules gradually begin to realign and crystallize. This process pushes out some of the water that once kept the dough flexible, causing the texture to become firmer and less stretchy. Refrigeration can actually speed up this firming process for starch-based foods. That's why fresh mochi is often enjoyed the same day it is made or frozen for longer storage, depending on the product. Many commercially packaged mochi products include carefully selected ingredients and specialized packaging to help slow texture changes and maintain freshness for a longer shelf life. A dessert rooted in centuries of tradition. Although mochi is now sold in supermarkets around the world, its cultural importance in Japan remains deeply rooted. For centuries, it has been associated with celebrations, family gatherings, and especially the Japanese New Year, when traditional Mochitsuki ceremonies bring communities together to prepare fresh mochi by hand. Today, artisans continue preserving these traditions while modern food manufacturers use advanced equipment to produce millions of pieces each year. It's a perfect example of ancient craftsmanship meeting modern food technology. If you enjoyed discovering how mochi gets its incredible stretch, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell.